Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing a food prep video with some breakfast and snack items and a few other things. So the first thing I'm going to do is kind of make a list of everything that I want to do. I've got a lot of stuff that I want to do and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get it all done. So I'm going to start by making a list. That way I've got everything written down that I want to do and I can just mark it off as I go. And then that way if I miss anything, I can just go back and do it on another day when I have more time. The first thing I'm going to start out by doing is preheating my oven, and I'm going to go ahead and make some granola. So I'm getting out all my ingredients, and I have a recipe video that I did many years ago, so I'll link it down below for you guys. It's a really simple recipe. It's absolutely delicious, and here's all the ingredients that you're going to need. You can kind of mix and match with what you have on hand and just be creative. I tend to just kind of make the same way because this is what we always have on hand. So my base starts out with about 10 cups of oats, and then I'm going to add some toasted slivered almonds. These were from Trader Joe's and they were so good. Normally I just use raw almonds, and then about a cup of pumpkin seeds, and then also maybe about a half a cup of flax seeds. And then I add a ton of cinnamon. I don't measure, I just dump it in, and it's absolutely delicious. So you can feel free to add anything else you'd like. Pecans are also really good in this. You can leave out nuts, you can add sunflower seeds, you can be creative with whatever you have on hand. So for my liquid ingredients, I use a cup of coconut oil. This is the unrefined, so it has a little bit of a coconut flavor, which makes the granola taste really good. I used to use butter in this, and that makes it taste really good. But if you can't have dairy, coconut oil is a great substitute. You can pretty much use whatever oil you'd like. It just might not have as much flavor. And then I'm also going to add the last bit of my homemade vanilla extract, and then about a cup of honey. Maple syrup tastes the best in here. Sometimes I do a combination of both. You can also use like regular sugar if you'd like, just, whatever you have on hand, but this is what I usually do. So I'm just gonna melt the coconut oil over the stovetop and mix in the honey so that way it gets all nice and warm and kind of mixes in. And then I'm gonna go ahead and add it to my oat mixture. I find it's easiest to stir by scooping deep down in the bottom and bringing it up to the top while spinning the bowl with my other hand. So after lots and lots of stirring and spinning and getting it all incorporated really well, I'm going to put it on my baking sheets. These are just stainless steel ones, so it makes 2 baking trays. Now sometimes I make half batches and just divide this recipe in half and only cook 1. But I like to do a full batch just because it makes more at one time and lasts longer. I'm gonna pop these in the oven and set my timer for 10 minutes, and then once the timer has gone off, then I'll go ahead and stir them. But for now, I'm going to mark this off my list, and then we can go ahead and move on to the next thing. My kids absolutely love licking the granola utensils, so I just give it to them to just kind of clean up, and I'm going to wipe down the counter before we move on to the next thing because I like to keep my workspace clean. Next, we are moving on to making a triple batch of breakfast sausage. Now, I did a video on this many years ago, so again, I will link that down below so you guys can check it out. This is absolutely delicious, and I love having it on hand in the freezer. So the first thing that I'm going to do is put all of my spices in a little bowl so that way I can mix them thoroughly together. I just find it's easier to incorporate into the meat if the spices are all mixed together first. I'm going to be using some organic ground turkey that I got from Costco. You can use pork sausage, you can use plain turkey like I am, or you can do a mixture of both, totally up to you.
I lose my breath whenever I see you. You stole my heart, what is it that you do?
My first 10-minute timer for my granola has gone off, so I'm just going to give it a quick mix around just so the edges don't burn, and then flatten it back out. And I'm going to take the second pan out and do the same thing, and then I will switch places with the pans because whichever one is on the top always browns first, so I like to just kind of cook them evenly. And then I'm going to set the timer for another 10 minutes.
My life was great till you added colors. Like the moon needs the sun, we don't care.
Okay, now back to my sausage. So I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of the seasoning on at a time, and I find that it's easiest to use 2 forks to just kind of stir it in and mash it together. And then I just continue that process of sprinkling just a little bit more on, mushing it around, mixing it together, sprinkling more on until it's all in there and nicely incorporated.
Set my world on fire. You're mine.
Now that that's all nicely incorporated, I'm going to go ahead and put some coconut oil in my new cast iron pan. So I'm going to get that preheated, and I like to use a scale to weigh out my sausage patties just so everything is nice and even. I use about 2 ounces of meat per patty. So I'm just going to flatten them out with my finger, and then as soon as my cast iron skillet's ready, I'm going to put it on there. Again, flattening it out with my fingers. Sometimes I use like a patty press to get these perfect, but I didn't have time for that today, so I just use my finger to just kind of spread them out.
I just wanna love you, just wanna hold you, just wanna be with you till we grow old. Please tell me you'll stay or take me away. I want you for myself every single day. You set my world on fire. You set my world on fire. I don't know what
I'm cooking them on sort of low, medium-low heat. That way they don't brown too fast before they're actually cooked on the inside. So I'm going to flip them over and let them finish cooking on the other side. So my granola timer has gone off and they are now done cooking, which I did not record the other times I flipped them. I think they cooked for about 25 to 28 minutes. So I'm going to take them out and put them on the cooling racks. The first batch of sausage is done cooking, so I'm going to put it on a plate so that way it can cool. And then I also got a couple of my ceramic pans out because there was only a few sausages that could fit on the cast iron skillet at a time. And I kind of wanted to get this done and over with, so I ended up cooking all the rest of them on these pans. I put coconut oil on these as well just to kind of help prevent from sticking. Even though the ceramic coating is supposedly non-stick, I still have to use coconut oil.
Like the moon is the snow, we don't care about the others. You set my world on fire.
I had quite a bit of trouble with them sticking on this particular pan here. I don't know if I didn't have enough coconut oil or what, but I don't usually have problems with this pan sticking. And I don't recommend using forks on these kind of pans because you could scratch the finish and ruin your pan, but I was trying to get it unstuck, so I was just being really careful.
You're my heart's desire.
The granola has completely cooled, so I'm going to go ahead and put it in a container here. Now it's kind of stuck on the bottom of the pan because I let it sit out too long without stirring it. I kind of got distracted. So if you just wait a few minutes when it comes out of the oven, if you just give it a quick stir, it'll keep the granola from sticking to the bottom. But the plus side to this is you end up with bigger chunks of granola because it kind of cools together. So it didn't stick too bad, but I usually try to give it a stir before it cools too much. But now that it is completely cooled, I can go ahead and put it in my container.
I just wanna love you, just wanna hold you, just wanna be with you till we grow old.
If you want to add any dried cranberries or raisins or any other dried fruit to this, now's the time to add it, not before you bake it, but now that it's cooled, you can go ahead and add that if you'd like.
Tell me you'll stay or take me away. I want you for myself every single day. You set my world on fire.
I'm going to immediately fill these pans with hot water, that way they can soak and kind of loosen up the granola that's stuck on there. That way it'll be so much easier to clean later on. My kids are absolutely obsessed with granola, if you couldn't already tell, and they are just having a ball eating the crumbs that I spilled. The sausage in the cast iron skillet cooked a lot quicker than the other two pans, so I'm going to take those off, put a whole new batch in, and then just wait for the rest of them to finish cooking. So once I took the sausages out of this pan, I immediately filled it with hot water because it would be impossible to clean off, so I'm just going to let it soak. I ended up getting 25 sausage patties from 3 pounds of meat, so it took a long time to get all these cooked. I'm going to do a really quick cleanup and load up the dishwasher, get all of the raw meat utensils and bowls and everything that I used with the raw meat into the dishwasher. That way I can clean up my raw meat area and disinfect it. It seems like ground turkey is really hard to clean up, harder than even ground beef or ground pork. It just kind of sticks to everything, and I'm just really paranoid about making sure I clean up raw meat. I have some disinfectant spray, and so I'm going to liberally spray out the sink and then also spray down my scale and the whole entire counter and area where I was doing the raw meat. I'm going to let that sit for a while, and then I'll wipe it down and spray it one more time and then wipe it again. I am very new to the cast iron world, so I'm still kind of learning. If you have any helpful tips, leave them down below. I would love to hear them. So now that I'm done with this pan, I'm going to rinse it out with some hot water, put in a little bit of salt, and scrub it around with my sponge. I read that it's not good to clean it with soap, so I'm just going to use the salt to kind of scrub away the bits of sausage that are stuck on there, and then I'll give it several good rinses and make sure it's all nice and clean. And then I'm going to put it back on my stove and turn it on just to help the water evaporate, and then I'll rub a little bit of oil on it and it'll be good to go for next time. When my sausages have completely cooled, I'm going to line them up single layer on a wax paper lined cookie sheet. That way I can stick them in the freezer and they'll freeze individually and won't be stuck together if I throw them in a Ziploc bag first. So that's why I want them to freeze individually before I put them in a bag. I love having these on hand. It makes a super quick and easy breakfast or a lunch, maybe on an English muffin with an egg. It's just super convenient to pull out and just warm them up. I used to just make them raw and freeze them and then cook them, but this is so much easier when they're already cooked. I bought this 6-pack of chicken at Costco, so I'm going to marinate some for dinner tonight, and then I'm going to go ahead and freeze the rest. And I really don't like these packages. I mean, I like how they're individually packed, but they're super hard to cut apart, so I actually ended up cutting one open a little bit and getting chicken juice everywhere. So I'm going to get a pan here, and I'm going to lay my packages of chicken on here so I can put them in our deep freeze. That way they don't all freeze like in one clump. It's a little easier to get apart. So now I'm going to open up one of the packages and put it in this bag for our marinade. And I took out the chicken and they were really, really small. And so I decided to open up another package and do a third piece because my kids are obsessed with grilled chicken and I knew 2 was not going to be enough. So I ended up doing 3 and I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do with that extra piece. So I ended up getting a frozen one from the basement and I put it in there, and I don't recommend putting fresh with frozen. But this is actually going to be for a crock pot meal for tomorrow. So I'm going to put this in the refrigerator to thaw. So it's okay to go ahead and mix these, but I would not put fresh with frozen and then stick it back in your freezer. Since I got the raw chicken juice on the counter, I'm going to clean up my mess really quick with my disinfectant and wipe it down. And then of course when I'm done, I'll do that again, but I just want to get those juice puddles down. So I'm going to go ahead and pound these out with the bottom of a glass. I don't have a meat pounder, so I just use a cup. I just do it really carefully and I've never broken a cup yet. So I'm going to pound them out. I find it's easier to pound them out because it just kind of tenderizes them and they cook really evenly on the grill. This is my absolute favorite chicken marinade for grilled chicken. It was a beautiful day today, so I just knew I had to grill. It's got red wine vinegar, oil. I use coconut aminos. You can use soy sauce, but I just do that. And then for the seasonings, it's garlic powder, oregano, basil, pepper, and I don't add any extra salt because the coconut aminos is salty enough, and I just always add salt to my plate. Then I just give the bag a really good shake and stick it in the refrigerator. Now the bottom drawer in my refrigerator is for raw meat only. Now it's time to clean up so I can spray and disinfect the counter and get rid of all that raw meat juice and raw meat stuff before we move on to our next thing. I'm going to spray down the counter with my disinfectant and then grab a paper towel, and that way I can just wipe up a couple of the raw meat spots, and then I'm going to spray it down again and then use a rag and wipe it down all clean. Now I'm going to go ahead and get my grinding mill out. I got this almost 12 years ago and I love grinding my own wheat. It's so much more nutritious since you're grinding it fresh. So I buy the hard white wheat from Costco. This is a 45-pound bucket for less than $20. So I can usually fit about 8 cups of the wheat berries here in this little hopper, and it fits in the little canister. I love having this on hand because I use it when I make bread, when I bake muffins, which is what I'm going to do here in a minute. So I just stick it in the freezer and I just pull it out as needed. I also use this to feed my sourdough, so I just like to do a big batch at a time to keep in the freezer. Now that I've got my flour all freshly ground, I'm going to make some whole wheat zucchini muffins. I like to have muffins on hand for snacks for the kids. It seems like they eat a lot of crackers and we go through a lot of crackers if we have them on hand. So I try to change it up and just have something a little bit different, and the kids just love muffins. I always make my muffins dairy-free by using oat milk or almond milk, whatever I have on hand. And then I just use avocado oil in place of the butter. And I also use honey in place of sugar. It makes it so much healthier, and you don't have to use as much sweetener since honey is sweeter than sugar. What? The milk? It is? Oh, it's the milk. I guess we'll have vanilla flavored milk. I have some shredded zucchini that I froze last year when I was picking zucchini from our garden. I just freeze it in 1 or 2 cup portions, whatever my recipe calls for. That way I can just pull it out, and I'm just going to squeeze all of the liquid out into the sink. That way I can just go ahead and add it to my muffins. I'm going to be adding probably about a cup of chocolate chips in here. It just kind of gives these muffins an extra special touch. The next thing I'm going to be making for snacks for the kids and myself are energy balls. These are so good. I made them a couple times and they're absolutely delicious. So I'm starting out with 1 cup of quick oats. You can also use rolled oats. I just find it easier if you use quick oats in this recipe. And then about a half a cup of peanut butter. You can use any other kind of nut butter that you would like. And then the recipe also calls for a 1/3 cup of protein powder, but I only have this collagen powder and it works great in here. I like to dissolve it in a little bit of liquid. About 3 tablespoons of water is what the recipe calls for, and so I just add my powder to that to just kind of dissolve it. And then I'm also going to add about 3 tablespoons of honey. I'm not going to measure, I'm just going to kind of eyeball it. And I find that if I mix this all together beforehand, it makes it a lot easier to incorporate into the dry ingredients. You're supposed to use chocolate protein powder, but since I didn't really have real protein powder, I'm just going to use some cocoa powder in here. Now I ran out of cocoa powder. I probably only have like less than a tablespoon. It definitely tastes better with more, but even with the little amount in here, these still turned out really good. And then I'm also going to add a couple of spoonfuls of flaxseed, and then I'm just going to mix it really well and get it all incorporated. As I was mixing this up, I realized that I put a little too much water in, so I'm going to add just a little bit more oats and then also a little bit more honey, because protein powder usually has a little bit of sweetener in it, so I want to make sure that these aren't too bitter. So I'm just going to stir that up, and then I'm also going to go ahead and add some mini chocolate chips. I like the mini ones in here. You can definitely use regular ones. I don't know, I like the little chunks of chocolate in there better than the big chunks. But anyways, you can use whatever you want. You can also add any other nuts or dried cranberries or whatever else you'd like in here. I'm going to pause on the energy balls real quick and take the muffins out so they can go ahead and start cooling. I like to remove them from the muffin tins immediately because if you don't, then they'll just be really hard to get out. All right, now back to the energy balls. I'm gonna use this cookie scoop that I got. It's by Food Network, and I'm just gonna scoop them out and just lay them all on the tray here. And then I'm gonna go back through and just kind of roll them a little bit more evenly and uniform. I like to stick these in the freezer for a couple hours just to let them harden and set up. And I'm gonna go ahead and pull the sausage patties out, and I'm gonna put them in a Ziploc bag. I like to store my leftover ground flour in the freezer just to keep it nice and fresh. I love having this on hand, like I said earlier, for sourdough or any other baking. And then of course, when it's empty, I just grind up another batch and stick it back in the freezer. And another thing to cross off the list, I still have a few more things here, but I'm just gonna leave it be for today. As you can see, the kitchen is a disaster, so I'm gonna do a good old Mary Poppins snap cleaning to get this house clean so this video doesn't take too long. And as you can see, it is now all perfectly clean. I'm gonna finish off by putting everything away that is finished. So these muffins I'm gonna stick in this container. That way the kids can easily get them when it's snack time. I'm also gonna put the energy balls in this container and stick them in the freezer. This is everything that I got done today and made. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it inspiring. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time.